Greetings and welcome to another video from odooclass.com. In this video we're going to take a look at a little bit more advanced subject. We're going to look at functional fields and the ability to create extra columns in our models that are calculated on the fly and that can be based upon calculations. Now if you haven't watched Odoo or OpenERP Developer Volume 1 and 2. If you're brand new to developing modules in Odoo, this is probably going to be a little bit too advanced, so we're going to move pretty quickly. We're going to assume as a prerequisite for this video that you already know the basics of making Odoo modules. You understand the basics of how to add additional fields to models, how to add additional fields to different views. So with that said, let's get started. I have installed just a base database, and I have installed just the sales management module. And for our example, again, we're going to use a real-world example. This is actually a request that I had with a real client that wanted to see the month-to-date sales in their customer view. So for example, when you come here to customers and you look in the list view, let's go ahead and we're going to add a customer here just so we have a little bit of data to work with. So we'll use our favorite Acme products. And basically what we want to do here is in our view, we want to be able to see the month-to-date sales so that as the month goes on, and the original request was for year-to-date as well, and we'll talk about that at the end of this video. But what we're going to do for our example of a functional field is we're going to add a column here that's going to show the month-to-date sales for all the customers in your list here. And doing that, it's going to look over to our sales orders, and we'll create one here so we have it. And it'll run a little slow because I've already got the debugger going because I know we're going to be, this is a development video, and I think I'm going to have to add a product, and that'll create it for us. And we'll just say the unit price is 20. And we'll save this. Alright, so this just gives us a little data to work with, and so we have 20 euros here. And so what the idea is going to be is when we come here to customers and we look in the list view here, that we'll see that month to date, that $20 get tallied up. And so it's going to involve a little bit of Python programming, so we're going to learn a little bit about some functions in Python that if you're still new to Python, this will be new to you. And we're also going to learn how to do functional fields. We're going to learn how to add those to our model. So we're going to get started with the very quick aspect of making a new module. So now I'm running an Eclipse debugger here, or IDE is what Eclipse is, and I'm basically got my add-ons folder already hooked in. So if you're new to module development, you don't know how to build modules, there's other videos that show the basics of how to create these basic modules like this vet clinic you'll find inside of our OpenERP Developer Volume 1. And so it's this is going to be for people who already know how to do this, but I'm going to quickly create a folder, and we're going to call this let's just call it partner, because it's going to be extending the partner model, and we're going to say month to date for month to date sales. And inside of this we're going to naturally need an init.py, and we're just going to go ahead and put in what we need for this import. And we're going to say we want, we'll go ahead with that partner MTD as our underscore MTD as our main Python file that we'll create here in a second. So we'll save that. And now let's go ahead and do our Open ERP. So these are all the standard files that we're going to need, so we're going to set these up first. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste a template here that I've already configured. So this will be very straightforward. We're going to call it Partner MTD. I put Odoo class in as the author, and this is going to add in month to date to the partner view. And this is what we're going to name the view that's going to show the month to date value in our view. And really depends sale. Obviously, to show sales in a month to date and look up that value, we're going to have sale as the dependency. So let's go ahead and save that. So we've got the two files that are essential, the init here, right here, and it's waiting for me to create this file, so it even knows, hey, this isn't available. And we got our Open ERP. So now let's create one more before we go on. So let's go ahead and call this Partner MTD.xml. So now this is going to be our XML file that'll hold the view that's going to inherit from the customer's list tree view, and it's going to inherit from that and extend it with the month-to-date sales, as well as a few other little things we'll do just to make that view a little more useful. Now, before I fill that one in, I'm going to go ahead and create the file for our Python that's going to actually create the functional field. So let's go here and do another new file. Actually, I kind of like doing it here just so I make sure I get it in the right place. All right, so in here we're going to have partner mtd.py, so it knows it's a Python file. And so in here is where we're going to take a little time to actually walk through some of the things. I'm going to bring in the what we're going to import. Now, because we're, this standard stuff that we're going to need, the models, the API, and the fields, we're going to import those in as libraries. And obviously, because we're going to be working with dates and times, and we're going to be looking at basically to find what are the sales within the current month that we're in. For that reason, we're going to need the date time library as well. So I'll go ahead and type this out, and we're going to extend on the res partner class. And you'll notice that part of the reason that we're using this ID, you'll see that it's actually finding and picking up our libraries. And I have another video on the Eclipse IDE, and that you can look up so that you can see how to actually set this up yourself if you're still having to use Nano, or you're using some other text editors that don't let you have the flexibility here that I'm getting. Okay, so now one of the things we know for sure we want to do is we want to inherit, and we want to inherit from res.partner. So we want res.partner to be where we inherit from, and so it's going to extend on that model. And now we're going to use a few of the things. One of the things that we want to do is we want to use the Odoo 8 API here for the most critical parts, and one of the things that we've got is a much better way of doing functional fields. And these are called decorators, or basically what they do is they inform the compiler as well as the Odoo framework what will trigger these functional fields. And so I'm going to type API 1 here, and I'm also, and I don't want this method, I just want this part of it. And now what that basically says is that Odoo's automatically, because of this, going to fire off this method. It'll do it, and then it's going to iterate. I can iterate inside of it the all the partner records in the view. So this basically just defines it as in that we just need to have this fire one time, and then it's going to, inside of it, for each of the partners, it'll automatically go through every single partner inside of this. So now we're going to say API.depends. Now this depends clause is going to tell us under what circumstances do we need to update this functional field. In other words, we don't want this firing off every time somebody looks at the record. We want to be able to say under what specific reasons we would recalculate this field. Well, one of the reasons would be is if we add or remove a sales order. So for any time a sales order shows up, we're going to need to account for that and recalculate the month to date. So we're going to add sale order IDs into this depends list. Now there's another possibility that there can be instances where values could change, or for example, and the main reason I would say is that whenever the state changes. So if we have a sales order that's in draft mode and it moves into being confirmed, even though the IDs here have not changed, the fact is we only want to count confirmed sales orders. We don't want to count draft sales orders in our month-to-date sales. So in order to get out the draft orders, one of the things we need to do is we need to know that when a sales order switches between draft and being confirmed, that we're going to have to update our month-to-date total. So that's another one of our triggers here, is that when sale orders order ID state changes, when that state changes, we want to trigger Odoo to re-evaluate the month-to-date sales, because if it moves from draft to confirmed, this value is going to change. Okay, so now we're going to actually create our function to do the computation. And I'm going to just call it compute month-to-date sale. It filled in self there for me. And you'll notice that one of the nice things about this debugger is it's automatically doing my indent for me. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull, what we're going to do is do a for partner in self. Now this is basically telling that we're gonna loop through all the partners in the view, because there could be 100 or thousands in there, and so when we're looking at it in the list view, there's going to be multiple ones, and what Odoo's automatically going to restrict this to only having the records in it that are applicable. So it's handling all the filters for us, which is kind of nice. It's another kind of perk of using the Odoo 8 way of doing things. Now, one of the things I do want to do is I want to pull out the cursor, and I can reference it here, and we can do the user here. Now, this might be something I'll go back and refactor this so that it's a little bit maybe cleaner, but this will work for us for now. So we want the cursor and the user so we can use it in our browse later. Now, one of the things we're going to have to do when we're doing this month to date thing is we're going to have to get the start date of the month and the end date of the month, and this is going to let us learn some Python. It's an opportunity to learn a little bit about some Python functions. And so I know that we're going to want to store this in our start date. So I'll start out, this is where we're going to want to store the starting date. We can really do this in one line of code here. And I'll start out at first just typing this part of it. We're going to use our date-time library. And with our date-time library, we can access the current date time, which is basically this year, month, and date arguments required. So this is basically going to give us access to that. And then what we can do is we can actually say today as one of the methods. So this will return today's date from the server. So this gives us the current date. Now, obviously, what the issue is that this could be the 5th of the month or the 10th of the month. It could be the last day of the month. We don't know what day of the month it is, and we want to get to the very first day of the month. And there's actually a real easy way to do that by just saying replace day with 1. So this is all we need. Basically to get the starting date. Now there is a little bit of a thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to convert this, however, because you'll notice that it says date time today. We need to convert this into a string so that it can be used in our in our domain context of when we actually do the search. Because when we go to actually pull the sales order records, we need to have it be something we can insert into as a string. So we're going to, at the end of this, call another function, and in it we're going to use the syntax here, %m/%day/% and a capital Y. And it's automatically put that single quote on there for us. So now this is a valid function here that's going to return and convert this start date into this. And you'll notice it says it's unused. We haven't used it yet. Okay, so we're going to leave that there for now. And now we're going to see how we would get our next our end of month. Now I'm gonna go ahead and refactor this a little bit already just to make it a little cleaner for everybody to look at. I'm gonna go ahead and say get today. Actually, I'll just say today because that's gonna be valid. Today equals, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab this much. So this will get us today by itself, so that now I can just go here and go today dot replace. So this will basically be equivalent. And now that's going to let me do for our next month is kind of the way we're going to go to find out what the end date is, because the end date's a little trickier. We want to basically find out what the last possible day is of this month. We're going to go to the next month and go backwards. Now, this is done a lot in dates. When you want to try to find the end of a month, the problem with finding the end of a month is that they change every month. So January has 31 days, February has 28 or 29, depending on if it's a leap year or not. And each month is different. Now you can write structure to do that, but you know, the nice thing is that Python has libraries that know when the ends of the month are. But the easiest way to use these libraries is not to look really at where we are in the current month, but to get to the next month and then work back from there to find what the end of the previous month is. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And now there's other libraries that will do this. I've actually done it myself multiple ways. So this is just one way to do this, and obviously there's probably many more that are more efficient. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with saying that we're going to figure out what our next month day is, and we're going to do this by basically saying we're going to take today, this variable right here, and we're going to replace it with 28. So the reason I kind of did this, that's why I kind of moved the day up here, so this will make it easier to see. Notice how this one, what it's doing is it's replacing whatever day of the month we're in, it's replacing it with 1. This one's taking whatever day of the month we're in and replacing it with 28. Well, why 28? Well, 28 is, on a leap year, the fewest number of days that we can have in a month. Okay, so 28 is going to be the least. So then what we're going to do is we're going to add to that. We're going to use our date time library again, and we're going to use time delta. And time delta means difference in time. So if we add to it 4 days, what have we essentially done is we've added from our current month 4 days to whatever the 28th day of the month is. So it's going to go for whatever today is and go 29th, 30th, 31, and then finally, no matter what, even if there's 31 days in a month, when we add 4 on, it's going to take us into the next month. So that's basically what this function's doing, is it's adding 4 days on to the 28th day of whatever the current month is, so it gets us to the next month. And now in the next routine here, you'll see why that is. So now we want to find our end date, because that's the whole point for our formula. We're trying to find the end. And so what we want to do is we want to take our next month, which we just calculated, and we're going to subtract from that the number of days, okay, that are equal to next month that day. So what are we doing here? What does this actually mean? Well, when we calculate the next month's day, if we're in the 28th day of the month, if we're on, say we're in February on a leap year and we're on the 28th day, we're going to, right here, we're going to add to it 4 days. So it's going to end up being the 1st of March, the 2nd of March, the 3rd of March, and finally the 4th of March. And so by taking the number of days that comes out of this function, how many days we're into the next month away, we find our end date. And this will end up, whatever day we put in, this is going to find the end of that date. And what we might do here, just so that we make sure we're getting the right end date, because that's the one that's, you know, we want to make sure we're doing it right. We can print that out to our debugger if we want, or we could, you know, now that we're in Eclipse, we could put a breakpoint in here and watch it. Now that we've calculated the 2 dates, let's go ahead and create our query and grab out our data. So we're going to say sale object. You name this whatever you want, and we're going to go out and grab our reference to the model. So this just says we're going to be working with sales order, and now we can get our order IDs here by going in here, and one of is we just basically say sale order sale obj.search. So this is our search right here, and we've already got our cursor and our user from up at the top. And this is where I think we can make this a little better using all Odoo 8 APIs. So we might come back and refactor this, but we're going to do this, and this will all work, and it's clean standard Odoo stuff. So we're going to want to look. Oops, I got this wrong. We're going to want to look for where the date ordered is greater than. We're going to use our greater than or equal to here, our start date. So this is the first criteria that we're doing, and this would be this may or may not be functional. We'll see if this is converted into a string right here. So we might have where we need to convert this into a string, and we'll see. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do date order also has to be less than or equal to, and I'm going to try to make this a little smaller here. We don't need to look at that right now. Less than or equal to our end date. Okay, so with that right here, we've basically handled our 2 date ranges. We want the date orders only that are greater than or equal to the start date we've calculated, and we want the date orders that are less than or equal to the end date we've calculated, because we only want the orders for this month. Okay, so now In addition to that, though, there's a few other things we want. We want to make sure that we only get the sales orders that belong to this partner. And you'll notice that we're saying for partner in self up here. So we need to restrict this data set to only be in for the partner that we're working with. And in this case, we're going to use an equals. And what we're going to use for it is partner.id. So we want the ID of our partner to equal the partner that we're looping through here. So it'll do it for how many ever we have. If we have 50, it'll do it for 50. If we have 1, it does it for 1. And then once again, we want to end our parentheses. So we end that set. Yeah, and actually, this is bad. We don't want that there. And now we have one more condition that we're going to add. And we're going to say state equals draft, like that. Okay, so here's the whole line. We're wanting only to have the states that are equal to draft, so it, or does not equal draft, I'm sorry. We want not equal to draft. So it's only going to get confirmed orders right here. So that's the final criteria. We don't want any orders that are not confirmed. We only want the orders that match the partner that we're processing. And we only want the orders that are less than or equal to end date. And we only want the orders that are greater than or equal to our start date. So that's the entire line that's going to grab all the order IDs that match our criteria. Okay. So now we're going to need to go through and grab these up and do what we need to do to calculate this value here. So now how do we do that? Well, first thing we're going to do is do a for sale in sale obj dot browse, because we have now a full list of, we have our basically pointer to this module, and so now we can browse through it anytime we want. We're going to cursor user, and now we have our order IDs. So this right here is where we're going to grab an object here for each order that satisfies this list of order IDs. So if a customer has 10 orders returned from this, those 10 orders are going to go into the list here, and then we're going to go through each one of them. We're going to pull each one of them out and browse through them and put them in the sale. And so now that we got that, and actually I need to put a colon here. And now we can say total plus equals, and we're just going to add on the sale dot amount. And you'll notice that even here, this editor is smart enough to pick up the amount total out of there. So we get our amount total, and we're going to put that into here. Now it's warning me that I never prime this, so we want to say total equals 0, 0. So we have a starting amount of nothing. It's going to loop through each of the orders, and it's going to total up the amount. And now once we totaled all these up, we want then to put them into this functional field. And now this is very Odoo 8 friendly here, is we have our partner field, and you'll notice that it even pulled it right here, up-to-date sales equals total. And that's kind of eerie that it did that, because we haven't actually defined that yet, because that's going to be down here. Okay, so this is going to do all our calculations. So that's all the code. This is going to, we'll walk through it again real quick. This up here tells it when and under what circumstances it's actually going to fire this off. And it's going to be whenever this list of sales order IDs change, or it's going to be whenever the state changes in those. For example, if it goes from draft to confirmed. You know, we pick up just two variables we need for our browse down here, and we loop through all of the records, all the partners, and we get today and put it into a temporary variable, and we go to the first day of the month using this method. We talked in depth about that earlier, but we're just summarizing now. This basically finds the last day possible of the shortest month and adds 4 days onto that, so it, no matter what, will take us into the next month. And then to get our end date, we take that and we subtract out how many days we got into next month. So that's what this does right here, and plugs that in. So we're always going to get the last day of any given month, and we're just printing that out here so it'll show up as we're running it. And then finally, then this is where we actually look up the sales orders. So we look up the sales orders based upon our start and our end date that we've provided. We make sure we're talking about only the partner we're working with in this loop, and we make sure we're getting only the orders that are not draft. And here is just a simple loop that's gonna total them up. I will mention that while this might not be the best code in the world, the most important thing to remember is to try to grab only the data you need. This part right here, where I'm only grabbing the orders that are greater than a start date that's provided in less than or an end date. This is important because I've seen routines written like this where the filter's not here, and instead a programmer might grab all of the records and then use the Python here to check the start date and the end date inside of your loop, and that's inefficient. You only want to grab the data that you need in order to process. So that is being done here. So we're not grabbing extra data from our Postgres server that we don't need. There's probably more efficient ways, however, than the way I did it. We could probably do the sums right in our queries, using direct SQL and not going through the ORM. But what we've done here is now we've got our totals that we can put in our functional field. So now let's go ahead and define our functional field, and that's going to be relatively easy now we've written everything. We just say month to date sales is going to equal fields dot float, because we want to float because it's money. It can have decimal places. And here's where we say compute equals compute MTD sale. Now that's going to match this. So this is how it knows when it's processing to use this method up here to calculate this functional field. So this is actually a field in the model that we're adding to our res.partner table, so we can do calculations on it, we can show it in views, we can do whatever we want with it, and it's always going to use this method right up here that we wrote to calculate it. And now, right now, we're just going to store it. We're not going to store it. We're just going to calculate it on the fly. And then we have an option here to just put whatever we want to call it. And we're going to call it month to date sales. So really, that's all it is. This is the entire functional method for calculating month to date fields. So we're going to save that. I'm still not sure. I might have to wrap this in a string, and I actually can. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to wrap these both in a string because they're returning back dates, and what we want to do is even though this is going to format this date with whatever string we give it, but we need to turn these dates into strings so that they can feed into here the way they're supposed to. So that's just the last little thing we need to do, is to convert these into strings. And that makes me think that maybe not doing that here, but do it here. Just kind of doing that in the wrong place, I think. And Python's pretty friendly about letting you switch things around like that. And you can see the editor's pretty good also about knowing when there's syntactical errors or context errors. All right, so that's our Python. Now we need to go back to our XML here that's empty, and I'm not gonna type this one out from scratch like I did the other one. I'm gonna copy and paste it in here, and then we'll just explain it. So if this is confusing, and it looks completely foreign, we have other videos, and that's why I'm not going to walk through this and type it out line by line like I did the other one. Because this one's a little more typical, but we're going to explain what this means. We want to, of course, give our view an ID, and this can be named whatever we want. But we're inheriting from partner tree view here, and I'm actually just going to put MTD on this just so it doesn't get confused with any other potential IDs. And I can also, in the same respect, give it a name here as well. So this is what we want to define for this view. And this, obviously, the model is important because we're inheriting from res.partner. And our inherit ID, this is always required when you're inheriting from another view. And we want to inherit from base.partner underscore or view underscore partner underscore tree. So this is important. This is where inside of this view, this is the actual view right now that we're inheriting from. We're going to inherit from this view, and I am just going to quickly jump into here and remind everyone that when you're looking at trying to find out what views you want to inherit from, it can be helpful to jump in here and look at your and we want to go to the tree view. Go in here, and if I edit the tree view, this you'll see here is the base view underscore partner underscore tree. So this is the view we want to inherit from right here. Okay, so, and there it is. So that's how we find that. So we're going to inherit from that view, and I have done a couple of other things here. You'll notice here after architecture that I've said field name equals display name, and I'm saying after that I want to show the city and the state. So we're looking here. So this is just a couple little things I've added. You notice we have our phone number here, which is nice, but we don't know what city and state our customer's from. So we're going to add city and state to our customer list here as just part of this enhancement. And you're also going to see here that where we add our month-to-date sales in. So here after the phone number is where I want to place our year-to-date sales. We're going to just go ahead and slap that in right after the phone number. And so in our view here we have phone, and so this Odoo, this view change is basically going to just put month-to-date sales right after that. And then now you'll notice that we have email here. Well, for this particular change, we're also going to suggest that we don't want to show the email here, because for this particular client request, it just so happened they only have email addresses on a small percent of their customers. If they want to see the email, they'll click in here and look at the record to see the email. They can look at it here. They don't need to see it in the list. So we're going to drop email off of this list by putting field name, email, position replace. So this is just a little bit of an example of how you can add things to the view here and then we're going to want to, after the phone, add our functional field. So really, this part of it is all that's taken advantage of our functional fields. We're just taking this as an opportunity to also clean up the view by taking out the email and adding the city and the state to the view as well. So I'm going to save that. And so that's all the pieces. We have our partner MTD, we have our partner MTD XML, we have our OpenERP, which ties the view into this, and we have, of course, our init that imports our actual. Let me make sure that's saved. It doesn't like picking that one up as much in editor, but that's going to import this partner MTD into here as well. So I'm going to save all these. It's saved now. So now it's just yellow, but it's going to go ahead and pick this up here. So now with all of these saved, we're going to stop the server, because you always, when you have a new module from scratch like this, you're going to want to start the server. It knows where the add-ons are at. So when I start this up, we're going to see if I made any typos or any mistakes, and if we did, we'll just fix them. Okay, so the server started up okay, but let's go ahead to settings, and we'll watch the editor here as it's pulling these. Now, one of the things we'll notice is that when we are running through the debugger and running it this way, it's going to be a little slower as it starts up than if we were running this outside of our debugger. But when we're editing and working with modules, it's kind of nice to have this. And so one of the things that, once again, is somewhat important to do, I think, in every install, somebody just needs to make a module, maybe something we'll do that automatically turns technical features on for the administrator when you set up a new database, because that's just something I always end up having to do, and then we always end up having to shift refresh to update our menus as well. So we're just basically gonna go ahead and let that happen. And one of the things I'll mention while we're waiting for these things to refresh is I am going to work on doing an Eclipse in Ubuntu, because let's be honest, this entire Odoo installation runs better under Ubuntu than it does under Windows. And while I like the debugging flexibility that this editor and all this is giving me in Windows, I want to see maybe if we can't get some of the same results doing that in Ubuntu. So we're going to update our modules list. Now you'll find that a lot of times you're going to know if you have a major problem right as that's happening. And actually this does right here tell me that this, it's probably likely that, or it's at least possible that we're not going to have successfully installed this module. And so let's go up to apps. And let this refresh, but we're going to see here in a second if it shows up in the list here. And there we go. We'll see the partner month to date show up there. But let's go ahead and hit install and see if we got everything like it's supposed to be. Now again, once again, it is going to take a little longer here, because, and we can watch this, that it's loaded the XML. There's a good chance then, if we go back, that it's going to be doing what we want. I'm probably just wait here for it to refresh. And we're going to go to sales and look at our sales order, or actually customers, and go on our list view. Oh, and there's our error that was inevitable. Okay, so I have an invalid timestamp, so it didn't like the way this converted. So we do have an error we need to correct here, and that happens. So let's go back and look at our syntax here in our month 8, and this is we noticed that it was the year that it didn't like. It looked like in the air it was not picking something up, and so I'm a little concerned I'm going to have to redo do something here in the way that I'm doing it. And I'm not really right offhand seeing what I did wrong, because this should have taken the start date and really placed it out. Let's see our error one more time when I hit this. Make sure we're talking about the right thing. Invalid syntax for timestamp. So it's definitely not getting that year conversion the way it's supposed to. Right here is what I'm seeing. Which I had actually tested this before and didn't have any trouble with it, so that's why I'm kind of shocked that we're getting this. And it is on the, this is actually on the greater than or equal to, so this is on the start date. We know that this is a start date issue with that particular one, and here it is right here. And let me just, oh, you know what? Percent instead of dollar sign. I just had a miskey. You'll see right here that I accidentally have a dollar sign there, and it doesn't know how to deal with that. So if you were one of the people that actually saw my miskey right there, good job on having good observation. So I'm going to try to get by without restarting the server here. Let's just see what happens if I try it again. I think it's until I recompile. Yeah, it's not going to see my change here. So we are going to have to stop and restart the server so that it can pick up that change. And it should be just as simple as doing that, because as soon as it restarts, it's going to drop that out of memory. And we'll see if that, once it has a chance to restart again, it should give us the result we're expecting, assuming I don't have any more errors in my code, which is entirely possible. I thought I was going crazy there for a second. Oh, I forgot I had put a new one in there, and we didn't actually confirm it. So 0's right. We're going to confirm. And we're just going to double check this to make sure we're getting our totals correct. And there's our $20 for this month. Let's go ahead and do another one. Let's just duplicate this one. And let's create one that has a lot more money in it to test. Save and confirm. Oh, I went the wrong way. That doesn't matter. So $41 on this order. We had 20 on the other. So we can expect, we go here to see our month to date, and you'll see it's totaling up like it should. Now let's just do one outside that date range so that it won't be in this month to date, just as a test, just to make sure. And let's create a new customer. So we'll say this is Bob Sacramento, and we're going to put this order date, create them. We're intentionally going to move that to February time frame here, and we'll confirm this. And basically what this is just a test, and actually let's do it this way too. Well, I've already done one on the 16th. So if we go now, and this $41 here, if we go to our customers and look at our customer list, we'll see that that's not getting picked up because it's not in January. So now let's do one. What I really wanted to do one was on the 1st of February, just to make sure that we don't have a one-off error. You always want to check for one-off errors. And by one-off means that ends up picking up the first here when it should not. So this one also should not show up. Inside of our list. So we're just double checking our math here. And I noticed that Odoo has its own little bug here that it's not always remembering what I typed. That's a little bit frustrating. But let's go back here and look at our customers and confirm that it didn't pick that up. And it didn't. And now for our final test, let's do one on the 31st for the same person. And then this one, it should pick up. So we'll have tested on both sides. And naturally, if you're really doing this, you'd want to test year boundaries, and you just want to make sure. Now, let's see if I hit save there, if it's remembering that. Yeah, it did that time. Alright, so this one's on the 31st. We're going to confirm this sale, and because this is on the 31st, we should pick this up in our month to date totals. And it didn't pick it up. And so there you go. It's a perfect example of wanting to test. Now I make sure I confirmed it here. And it is on the 31st. We have 961 on the 31st. And it's not picking that up. We're just going to confirm that it's not picking that up. And it isn't. So let's do one on the 30th and see if it picks that one up. So I caught myself there. Something's not right with our routine. We want to get it right. And I thought I had tested this before bringing it here. And I'm assuming it's a date calculation issue. So that's how we're testing that here. That we're going to see, do we see on the 30th, does it pick that up? And it is. So it's not picking up the 31st, and we see that now. That and we're going to be able to fix this hopefully pretty quick, because we got the 21 is showing and the 31 isn't. So really what it means is we're going back too far in our formula here. So what we know here is that this is going to go, this is almost arbitrary. We're going to go as many days into the next month as we need. We're just backing off too many here, is what's happening. At least that's what I'm thinking. So we're going to take that next month that it's calculating, and then when we subtract back out, we're just going to take one off of this. Now some of this is just, hey, that's what makes sense logically. If we're going too far back, and we're getting to the 30th, we just want to get to the 31st. So we're just gonna go one day back on this. And so we stop, and we restart. Made sure we saved it. So a little bit of that's why we test these check for one-off errors. In other words, we weren't going back far. We were going back too far because it's not picking up our end date. So it was going back too far. We're not going to want to go quite back that far. So we should just be able to go up here and rerun this and see the data pop in, and there it is. So now we have 982 and 61, and what we want to verify here in our sales orders, in our 982 total, is that we are picking up the 31st, we are picking up the 30th, but we're not picking up the 31, and that's the case here. And what you can use our grouping here to group by customer, and that'll help us kind of look. So we know now that we can tell that we're not picking up the one in the 2.1 and the one on 2.16. We're not picking up these. We're just picking up the 961 and the 21, and we can actually do it this way to see here. Look at this. Look at that. Look what I'm looking at here. Now this is Odoo stuff. Okay, so I can't really be blamed for what I'm looking at here, but it looks like for whatever reason Odoo is picking up this 131 inside of their February grouping when I order by month. And so what I was hoping would be something to let me double check my totals shows me a bug in Odoo. Wow, yeah, there it is right here. So it's actually a situation where my calculations are correct, because I'm picking up the 961 here, as well as I'm picking up the 21. So when we look at this in our totals here, we're getting the right totals. We're getting the 982 and we're getting the 61. That's kind of spooky to me to see here inside of Odoo's group by. If I group by order month, yeah, they certainly got something picking up in here that's picking that up. So it's not my fault. I'm opting out on responsibility of blame there, because we can see that my totals here, where I'm picking up the $21 from the 30th and I'm picking up the 961 from the 31st, that for our functional field, we're getting the results we want. So we've got our goal met here. Why Odoo is misreporting this is something I'll have to research myself. This is obviously wasn't expected to be found here. So how it's grouping this 131 here under our February grouping, that's just one of those things that we'll have to look at in another video, and hopefully I'll find out why that's occurring, because this is, again, this is I didn't override anything inside of here, inside of this view, or have anything to do with what Odoo's doing here, but they've clearly got, we got to figure out what's going on with that at a later time. So hope this video is helping on finding out functional fields and how they work. The most critical parts, of course, just real quickly, right here when you set up your field, you're going to have your compute equals, and you're going to say what your function name is, and then this is going to be the function it's going to call. You're going to have self that's going to be provided to you, that you can do whatever you need. And of course, we've walked through this code a couple of times now, so it should be pretty clear. If this is completely confusing, go back and look at some of the other easier videos. You might want to look at the Smart Buttons video, the Odoo 8 API video, as well as you might want to look at Odoo OpenERP Developer Volume 1 and Developer Volume 2 that shows basics for building modules. But other than that, just don't hesitate to send us an email. This was another subscriber request of looking at functional fields, and so we're trying to create videos that'll answer the questions you have about Odoo. So don't hesitate to ask if you got a question. And until next time, take care, and thanks for watching.